Hi.
Hello.
Look at you. You still have your purple hair.
Pink.
Oh, pink. Yeah. How was that? I was so excited watching your stories. I was like, ah.
It was so good. It's been so long since I was modeling, and it's been like once I heard that I was modeling again, I like started crying. I was like, I
Aw.
didn't know I would ever do this again because of COVID
Aw.
and then also like just life. So it was like a true honor to be able to go back. And I
Yeah.
was just feeling grateful all weekend long. And then I just saw some amazing people that I already knew from working with Matrix in the past. It's like
Yeah.
my home away from home, like with the Matrix crew, but I worked with Ulta this time. And I like there were still artists that work with both companies.
Yeah.
So it was just really good to like see my people again after 2.5 years. And it
Yeah.
was awesome. I don't know. I just keep smiling every time I think about it. It was a
Yeah.
great experience. It's always so fun too.
Yeah. It sounds like a big full circle moment because I know, that was kind of a big part in your, journey with God was like, hey, no, I want to take you this path. And then kind of showing that, look, you can have both.
Yeah, I can have both. He makes a way when you feel like there's not a way, but
Yeah.
he was able to help me out even in like, I mean, the modeling world it's not really filled with a lot of godly people, honestly. And
Yeah.
it's like, even it's crazy because I mean, I don't want to say that. I just kind of want to, it's just a different world. And I feel like showing God is a little bit hard, and
Yeah.
also like feeling the pressure of like the world, and also like
Yeah.
living in that environment. It's like hard to like love yourself and be confident in your body and your skin, and because there's so many negative aspects. But I was able, even like it's crazy because last week Sean said God spoke to me and said like you're going to touch someone this weekend. And it's crazy because the one girl that pushed my buttons the morning I met her, I was like, this girl is not a nice person. Like she just only cares about people's following, and she only cares about like if you have a good following, and she wants to get close with you and talks about herself all the time.
Yeah.
Little did I know 4 hours later, I would be talking about God with her because she doesn't believe in God and she's agnostic. And I was like, of course,
So,
the one person that I like got under my skin, God wanted me to speak to. I was like, of course.
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how it works. I don't know. I just, I think that it's just a really great testament. I actually recorded my testimony like last week, and like even me just saying that, like it makes me want to cry and get all emotional. But that was like a big part in my healing through God. I really wanted to get into modeling, and I kind of went down the wrong rabbit hole, to be honest. I didn't really talk about it in the testimony, but I got slightly taken advantage of, where they were like, they knew I really wanted to model. And so they kind of over sexualized things, but then
Yeah.
I liked the attention that I got from it. I was like, shared on Sports Illustrated, and I'm getting all these new followers, I'm getting all these new likes. And that liking to, I don't know how to explain it, but like look beautiful and people get that attention from people is a huge thing that I had to heal from. So I think it's really great that, you're able to be a light for other people and showcase that, you can truly, have that love of God in you, but still, show the beauty that God gave you in a, I guess, wholesome way. So,
Yeah, because I think our stories are kind of similar, like starting out, is because when I started modeling, I was doing the same thing. Like I was doing implied shoots, and I was doing like sexualized photo shoots, and it was like so negative. It was so bad. I wasn't portraying my body in the godly way. And that's like how the modeling world can get, like the enemy can get to me through that. And that's when like after I started loving myself again, I was like, I'm not doing this again. So then I found certain industries, like there's industries that I won't shoot in anymore because the thing is, it's not good for me, and the enemy like attacks me in that way. So it's like I found my niche, I'm in my groove, and it's like I'm able to fully be confident going wherever, modeling for certain people, and be totally fine because I made boundaries for myself, like who I model with, what I model. So
I'm so happy for you. I just like, I just get this like feeling in my heart that I'm like, oh, I'm so happy for Brie. So
thanks. Yeah, I built my connections back up, and now like I'm going actually down to South Carolina to help. Actually, it's crazy because like I was doing videos while I was modeling, like transitions and putting on my social media. And the girl I was working with, I've worked with her prior, but she was like, hey, I want to fly you down to South Carolina. I need help with my content. And I was like, dang, like this is what I do full time. So I'm actually gonna fly down and help her out, and she's actually gonna help me get more shoots and stuff. Yay! So it's kind of awesome. I was like, dang, like I knew this weekend. I mean, I wasn't getting, because I paid for my flight because it's like my first time back. I did a lot of things that weren't like profiting, but I knew I was going to get connections, and like that was my goal this weekend. So I got my connections back, and it's nice. I'm like taking that next step, and I'm going to be able to like continue modeling, which I thought like was completely done for. So
well, that's super exciting. So obviously I'm keeping this clip in the podcast because great conversation already. I would love, there's no way I'm ever going to do you justice with an intro because Brie, you do so many different things. And like I've already said many times, you are such a light in this world. So I'd love if you could give the people listening just a little intro, who you are, what you do, and then we'll go into more of your testimony.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. So my name's Brie. Oh my gosh, I almost said Brie Bloom. My name is Brie Matthews now. I just got married in May. So it's definitely so weird to say that. I haven't legally changed it, but we're on our way to doing that. But I see it's so hard to do intros.
Right. It's like who am I?
So basically, I am a full-time entrepreneur. I do a lot of different things, but my main thing is social media strategy and content creation for brands. I just love being able to help people that have their own company that are in charge of 10 million things. Social media is so crucial for brands. So I'm just helping them take their passion and put it out on social media for the world to see. So that's kind of like what I do. I am also 25 years old. I did get kicked off my dad's insurance already, and I'm not 26 yet. So that's been hard this past month. But got married in May, and I have an amazing husband. And in the future, we want to have lots of little kids running around. He already wants to have kids, but I'm saying, hold on.
Yeah, I saw that one post. I was like,
that was a joke.
Like, I'm waiting for it. Yeah. So I would love to dive a little bit more into your testimony. And, we don't have to go full spectrum, but I definitely think, kind of what we were diving into, I think it's really helpful for people to hear. Yeah. Just more about people's stories because, when you walk in darkness, it's hard to first off even notice that you're in a dark space. And then to also realize that there are better things just by accepting, Jesus and having that healing that can only come from him. So I'd love to hear where you were at a couple of years ago and just wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, well, a couple years ago, actually, I think it was a little bit more. In college, I was in that dark space, but I think it really started like growing up. So I did grow up in a religious household. I hate the word religion because I view it as more of having a relationship with God, but it was a religious household. And my parents got a divorce when I was 6 months old. So kind of like my faith with God was kind of split. So my dad, I was raised Catholic, and I even went to Catholic school from daycare up until 8th grade. And I loved what it instilled in me, morals, but it really did a lot to me internally. I just viewed like it was walking through the steps of life. I never had a relationship with God. I didn't know you could have a relationship with God. I just viewed it as these are the things you have to do. And if you do this, you're going to hell. And I just grew up in it wasn't necessarily my dad, it was a school I went to. Yeah. And it just really hurt me growing up. And I never really had a relationship with God when I was growing up. Yeah, I was in school. We were learning about God every day. We had religion class, but I never had a relationship with him. So whenever I got to high school, especially college, I just never really prayed. Like I would do like Hail Mary, full of grace, like traditional prayers. And there was just, I looking back on it, like slowly I was stepping away from God and stepping away from God to where there was a point where I was like, I don't even know God. Like, who is this dude? Like, I never felt him. I never heard from him. And it just kind of got me down a rabbit hole of like, this person is not here for me. And
I just want to ask you a question really quick. So you
yeah.
said, and I think that's something that's a really common what's the word? Misconception. Yeah, misconception.
Yeah, misconception.
Yeah, is like, well, I'm not hearing from God. All these people are saying God told me this, and God spoke this to me. Do you ever look back when you were younger and during that time and think, wow, like God really was there?
So I had a very traumatic childhood. So a lot of my childhood I've kind of like blurred out.
Oh, okay.
But I definitely saw, like in college especially, that's when God was really reaching for me, because I was in such a bad place. Like I didn't even know it. Like I was partying all the time. I was in an abusive relationship, and it was just so bad that it was to a point where I was just like, I don't even know where my life is going. And that's when like my teammates slash roommates slash best friends, they mentioned like going to church again. And
awesome.
we kind of like got into that talk about it. And that's when I realized like, wow, like I'm at such a low point in my life. I didn't even know God was reaching for me, and he was reaching for me in college, like throughout college, like little nuggets here and there, but like through people, because I believe that God can speak to you through people and who he puts in your life. And at that time, like he put like, I call them my lifesavers in my life. And that's when like I was trying to get out of that abusive relationship. And I would start going to church on Sunday and speaking with my roommates about God. And it was like he was placing little nuggets in my life a year prior to like when I finally like said, okay, I'm ready to go back to church. I'm ready to take this next step. And like thinking back on that, I was like, wow, like he was really trying to reach out to me. And I know like a relationship with God is a two-way street. Like you have to reach to him, and he's constantly reaching to you, but you have to reach to him to be able to accept what he has for you. So like I finally did that senior year.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of moments from my testimony where like God literally saved my life. Like there were moments, like there was one time I drank too much at a bar and I went the wrong way home. And I went to the south side of Bloomington. So I left Bluebird and went south side and got picked up by a cop, which was a blessing. Because he was like, do you know where you're at right now? And like, what could have happened to you? Of course, at the time, I'm like, oh, I got picked up by a cop. How terrible. But I'm really like, what a blessing. Like, what? Yeah. And there were like so many more moments like that. And, I think what people need to realize, like you said, having a relationship with God is a two-way street. And the more that you open up to him, the more that, you have that one-on-one connection with him, and you can hear how he's speaking to you and who he's putting into your life. But a lot of times you have those blinders on where you just can't see it, and you're not open to accepting any of it.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, he's still reaching. It's like when you ask, is there times like looking back, you remember like God reaching to you? And it's like at the time, like, no, you don't, you have no idea. But then when you like take time to sit there and be like, wow, like I didn't even know it at that time, but he was really reaching for me. And then that one time I reached back up, and that was like life-changing.
Yeah, I think the thing too that's scary is because you have those blinders on and you're not open to that, you also don't see the darkness that is looming over your whole life, which if only we were, could be like the little kids that, like little kids, they just see it. They don't know, they haven't been, I guess, corrupted by society or taught not to, I guess, see those sorts of things or believe in those sorts of things. So I don't know. But anyway, going back to your testimony. Okay. So senior year, you started going back to church, got out of that relationship, and then, what happened after then?
Well, that's when I graduated, and I was not coming back to Bloomington. I was like, I am out of here already, because I went to school in Alabama. I played volleyball in college. I didn't really add that to the beginning, but yeah, so I was like, I'm not going back to Bloomington, never going back there. So I was applying. At that time, I was modeling for L'Oreal, and I was talking to the marketing director there about getting a job in New York or LA. And then that didn't really work out. And then I was like, I'm going to Nashville, and then nothing worked out. So I was like, okay, I'll just go home for like a month or so, apply to jobs like crazy in Nashville and everywhere else. None of them worked out. And I was like, I am trying to get out of here. I need to get out of Bloomington. I was already here for most of my life, and I need something else. And my place was here. God was like, no, you're not leaving. Because I tried so hard. And he was like, no, like, and what's crazy is I didn't realize it at the time, but the reason why he needed me back in Bloomington was for a few reasons. But the main reason at that time was because my relationship with my family was not good.
Yeah.
And I felt from him that I could not leave Bloomington until I got right with my family.
Wow.
And that was like the moment I was like, wow, like, this is why I'm back here. Because if I wasn't coming back here, I probably would not speak to my family anymore. I would not have a relationship with my dad or my mom or my brothers. And that was the reason why I needed to stay in Bloomington. So
that's amazing, because you all are so close now.
Yeah, and that took a lot. There's a long story with it, but we've gotten to the point where I'm so close with my family now, and I love them to death, and I couldn't view my life without them. So being here close to them, I needed that. I, like, me personally, I need to be close to my family. And also I met Sean back here.
So was there ever a point where, you know, you're not getting a job anywhere, and at this point you have a relationship with God? Was there ever a point that you were angry?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of times I was angry. But I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so I masked that with meeting new people, going to the lake all the time. Like, I just was like, okay, if I'm here, I'm just gonna make the most of it. And I was living with my dad at the time, and it was when I came back, it was not healthy. Like, my dad and I's relationship was not good. I was living with him, and I was so angry because I was like, I want to get out of here. Like, why am I still here? Like, I have a degree in marketing. Like, I have all these qualifications. I had an internship. I was an athlete in college, which should help me out a little bit. Like, why am I not leaving? So I was really frustrated for a long time. But honestly, like, I saw someone post something about City Church on social media, and I started going to church. And that's when I found like my new community back home, because growing up in high school, obviously, like, I wasn't the best in high school, and my friend group wasn't leading me in a godly path. Like, I still have some of my best friends from high school here. Like, they were like my rocks in high school. But God gave me a new community, and that really, really, really helped me like find my own path, and also start loving who I am, because they were pouring God into me. And I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have friendships that were continuing to pour God into me and trying to challenge me, because these friends were at City Church, and I was at a new chapter in my life where I needed to be challenged in my faith. So I found a whole new friend group, and they're so awesome. I love them to death. They continue to challenge me, and like, I don't know, it's so crazy being back in Bloomington, because now like my whole life is different.
Yeah, I just have to pull this correlation because it's so important. You know, you were at a rough place in your life when you were in college, and then God spoke to you through people, and you started going back to church. And then same with when you came home.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden you started going back to church. You were frustrated, you were angry, in a little bit of a dark place again. And then you started going back to church, and the light came back. And, you know, it makes me think, I have this client right now, and she was in a really dark place when we started working together. And the 2 changes that we initially made, I was like, get in the Bible every morning, just read something. So she started reading Proverbs, and then she'd make a to-do list. And immediately she started feeling so much better. The depression subsided, the frustration was subsided. She was actually going out and doing things. And it's, you know, I just can't put into words how amazing it is when you finally surrender to God and just let him take over all the anxieties and all of the things of the world that are holding us down, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Like when you surrender, so I got baptized in 2019, I have a little tattoo. But that's when I fully surrendered. And that's when he not only like put things in my life, but he took things out of my life that I didn't know were from the enemy, that were not good for me. Like, even though I was in church and I was living my life for God, there were still things in my life that were wrong. And I didn't know it. I thought they were good. I thought they were fine. But then God was like, no, like I have something better for you. So I'm removing this. You've surrendered your life to me. So you need to trust me that me removing these things from your life is going to be good for you. And I was so mad at the time. I was like, I thought I was doing good. God, what is going on? Yeah. And then like looking back on it now, I was like, wow, like taking those things out of my life, like really changed. Like I wouldn't be with Sean right now. And if I did not surrender my life to him, like, I don't know where I would be right now.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't really know God very well when I met Sam. And Sam grew up a Christian. He was also in a dark place, but God really spoke through Sam to me. And like, there was this conversation we had at one point. We were driving somewhere. I was still doing all the Instagram boudoir type stuff. And I still wanted to move out to LA and become a model. And, you know, and I thought that I was helping people. I truly was like, I am helping women, like what I do now. I truly thought that I was going to get to that place with what I was doing. And Sam was like, Kelsey, what are you doing? You posting this stuff isn't helping anybody. It's just, you know, I don't know if he told me it was feeding my ego, but he was like, you have such a great personality. Why are you trying to mask that and be something else? And I remember being so mad at him and like, who do you think you are trying to tell me what to do with my life and this and that? And it's funny because now I look back and that was something that God needed to prune off of my life. Like I needed to not be trying to chase all of that attention and instead draw my attention towards God. You know, crazy. And it, you know, now that I garden and stuff, I think about that often because, you know, with tomato plants and all, you know, any plant, right? You have your deads and you have to pick them off. And I always tell my plants, I'm so sorry, but this is going to be you. I'm fruiting you and you're going to have more fruit because of it. So I promise it's good for you. Yeah. So I really want to segue into business. You are an amazing entrepreneur and I know you've shifted gears quite a few times. And so I'd love to hear how you decided to take the entrepreneurial path and how, you know, obviously how God has, you know, shifted that for you.
Yeah. So I actually had a big fear of being an entrepreneur. Both my parents are entrepreneurs and my mom said, do not be an entrepreneur. If you're going to marry an entrepreneur, you better not be an entrepreneur. It was like, I think there's just so much fear around it. And like knowing my dad's an entrepreneur and like, I've seen the struggles of it, the hardship. And then, so I was like, I am never going to have my own business. I'm never going to be an entrepreneur ever. Like it was like my biggest fear. Cause I was like, that's not for me. And then one day during COVID, I walked into Pastor Renee's office. She's one of our senior pastors. And she said, I just felt from God that you're going to be an entrepreneur. Wow. And I was like, oh no, you're hilarious. I don't know where you heard that from. And this was in, I think the beginning of 2020. So I like laughed it off and just walked out of her office. And then here I am now, like having my own business. And I would thought she was absolutely absurd. Like I thought she was crazy. I was like, that is not from God. I don't know where you heard that from. So it's just crazy to think like the enemy put fear in my life about being an entrepreneur with my parents. And then I got a word from our senior pastor that I was going to be an entrepreneur. And it's crazy how God takes your fears and turns them into like your passion, or I don't know. He takes your fears and turns them into, what's the word?
I don't have it, but I have a thought.
Oh, share your thought.
So there's this book by Grant Cardone called The 10X Rule. And in that book, he says that if there's something, and he's a huge entrepreneur, really into real estate, probably a billionaire, and that none of that matters. But in his book, he says that if there's something that you're afraid of, that means that you need to go at it 10 times stronger. And, you know, when I first listened to that book, I was saved at that point, but I was very into like personal development and not personal development through my faith, which now I don't really do as much personal development. I do a lot more, you know, like growing in faith, I guess you could say. But I don't remember when this hit me. This was probably a year or two after I read that book. I had this aha moment that the fear is instilled by the enemy. So if you're feeling really fearful about something in your life, probably means that there's something really good on the other side of that. And removing that fear is what God wants you to do to reach whatever potential underlies there.
It's kind of like PD, like he had a speech impediment growing up, but God called him to be a preacher.
Yeah.
And so God uses our weaknesses and turns them into our strengths, because we have to rely on him through our weaknesses. Yeah. So whenever he gives us strength, and in turn becomes our strength because of we rely on him, like in our fears and our weaknesses. And I think that's what I was doing. And now like I work for myself full time, and there's still fears in it. I mean, you're not just gonna get rid of all your fears, because there's still doubts that come along, and the enemy still has a little voice in your head. But he can't control you with that. He might try, but you have God and you have his word to fight back.
Yeah. The first time that scripture ever, I felt like, wow, this is speaking to me. You know, obviously I'm an entrepreneur, and the people that listening know that. And it's hard being an entrepreneur, and the money side of it, I would say, is the most daunting thing, because you can put out as much content as you want, and especially good content. I truly wholeheartedly believe that God is going to bring that growth into your business. But 3 years ago, I felt that it was all on me, like all the pressure's on me. In Matthew 6, I think it's 25 through 34. And I'm not going to say the whole thing, but the ending is seek his kingdom first, and all else should be granted to you. You know, don't worry about today. You know, today has enough trouble of its own. And it talks about, you know, the flowers don't worry and look at them in all their splendor. The birds don't worry. And so why are we worrying about everything?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yeah, I think money is the biggest thing in our world right now. Like the biggest thing that break up marriages, the biggest conflict. There's so much conflict around it, but yet we tend to put that in the forefront of our mind. And when you're having your own business, it's like, for me, like I have high months, I have low months, and it's not steady. And I think that's where like I have to put my faith in God, is when I have those low months that he's going to supply. Yeah. Because you never have a steady income when you're an entrepreneur and you're paying yourself. And sometimes you don't even pay yourself because you're so focused on your business. So when it comes to like the money aspect, it's just like, okay, like I'm doing what God has called me to do. He's going to provide no matter what my salary is, no matter what my income is for that month.
Yeah, I actually have a really crazy story that can give anybody hope in this. So I haven't talked on the podcast, but I had my whole healing journey last year. Yeah. I had a doctor literally tell me only work 20 hours a week. And I was like, girl, you're crazy. So anyway, I'm putting like a majority of, and I was also investing a lot into my business the beginning of that year, which I got sick. And so I wasn't able to work very much. And so I kind of got in the hole really bad. And then, you know, I'm working a lot on my health. I got out of that over investing, and I'm still barely working. And me and Sam are like, we need to buy a house. Yeah. And we really felt compelled that that was the path that we needed to do, and that, you know, God was taking us down. And we go and we see this house. And the night before, we decided that if this house isn't the house, we're going to wait and we're going to save up more money for a down payment, because, you know, I didn't have very many savings at that point. And we go and we see this house, and I just got this image of me in this white dress with my son running at me. And it was like, and then we actually prayed before we went, and we're like, God, if this is our house, make your presence known. And we're walking through and we see scriptures everywhere, and we're like, wow, this is our house. And so then we get home and Sam had enough money for the down payment, but it was going to be close. And so we were like, okay, we need to wait like 2.5 months to move in, which is not common when you're buying a house. They usually want you to close within like, 30 days. And luckily the people wanted us to wait 2.5 months. So we have so it worked out perfectly. And we're like, okay, Sam will have enough money saved up. And so we were relying fully on Sam to make the entire down payment. And, I'm just praying and I'm like, God, I give my finances up to you. I changed absolutely nothing in my business. I was honestly barely posting on social media. And out of nowhere, I signed on like 6 clients and I ended up with enough money to split the down payment.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
It was like, wow. And so that moment instilled in me, like, I just need to stop stressing because God will take care of it.
That's amazing. Wow. See, that's just like proof that sometimes all you have to do is pray and God will supply, especially like if it's in his plans for you. Yeah. You're going to be wearing that white dress with your son one day.
Yeah. Well, big shifts are coming. I had the lady at church come up to me and she was like, God told me big shifts and Sam might enlist. And so this is the whole thing. So,
oh, wow.
Big shifts. Yeah. But, so I really want to dive in to your any advice that you have for women. Again, I keep saying this. If you guys get anything from this podcast, I'm sure you'll get some things, but go follow Brie. She really shares a lot of inspiring info, especially for women. So is there anything that you would tell a woman that's maybe struggling? Maybe it's with her sexuality, maybe it's just with finding confidence in God?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I have is put your relationship with God first, because I think a lot of times we can put the pressure of the world on our shoulders, and there's a lot of things the world wants to say to you. And there's a lot of things the world said to me that I listened to. And I think the biggest thing is always put your relationship with God first and always make yourself a priority. I think there's a lot of stress that comes with not putting ourselves as a priority and focusing on ourselves. Like for me, for instance, like I was not, when I started my business, I was not taking care of myself. I wasn't taking time to pray over myself, putting energy into myself. And then I started working out more. I work out in the mornings now because I have that time to focus on myself and learn how to love myself. I think that you can't love anybody else until you love yourself first. And that's probably the biggest thing I would recommend, because learning yourself is a priority in your life, and learning how to love yourself really reciprocates like how you take care and how you love other people.
Yeah, what you're saying makes me think of Proverbs 31. You read that and you're like, oh, this woman does everything. Like, how does she do so much? Right. And there's also some people that I follow on YouTube. I'm really into like the homesteading space. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I follow some of these women. I'm like, how do they do so much? And, sometimes if people look at me or look at you where we're at right now, they might be like, how do they do so much? And the honest truth of that is when you put God first, it somehow gives you all of that strength, all that power, all that energy for you to go out and do God's work in your day-to-day life. Yeah. And it also takes off that pressure of like, if you need to take a nap or like you need to slow down, like not questioning that. And somehow over time, like that exponentially goes up. The longer you get into your habits, spending time with God, exercising, cooking, eventually, like I was saying, it exponentially goes up and you're like Proverbs 31 later, you're like, woo. I'm not there yet. I don't want to act like I'm 31, but that's the goal, right?
Yeah. I also feel like we're in such a hustle culture right now that everyone thinks that being productive is go, 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 go. Like I was listening to this podcast the other week about how like, oh, like if you worked 65 hours in 1 week, you're like, oh wow, I got so much done, I was so productive. That's not being productive. Actually, that's hurting yourself, because you're overloading yourself with so much stuff. And I feel like in our society right now, it's just go, 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 do. You're not going to make it if you're not constantly working. Like, you're not going to be successful if you're not constantly going and going. And the truth is, like, that is so false, because when you're go, you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
And you're also going to lose yourself in that. And that's why I said, like, take time for yourself and take time for God. That's why I kind of take time at the beginning of my day, is because I reset my mind and I reset my relationship with God every single morning. So I can focus on that in the morning, and then I can do what I need to do the rest of the day, and also setting boundaries for myself, because God is a very big supporter of boundaries and not overworking yourself, and not letting yourself get so exhausted that you don't have time to spend with him, because that should be your number one priority.
Yeah. And I don't hate to say this, but I only hate to say this because this is going to strike someone and then someone might get upset. Women are not the same as men. Like, we really sometimes need to remember that. And, you know, even in scripture, like, we're not the same. Like, women don't respond to heightened stress the same way that men do. So you might see your husband and he might grind for a month period to do XYZ, and he might be okay. You know, I still think he needs to be spending the same time as God and putting God first in his life, but physically he's not going to end up with the same symptoms as a woman might, because when our cortisol levels go crazy like that, all of a sudden our hormones go out of whack, our gut goes out of whack, our mental health goes out of whack much quicker than a man will. And I think honoring that is something that's incredibly important. And then something else I want to say that I think is really important too. It's like, when you can be quote unquote hustling without hustling. And I think, but what I mean by that is, like, when you're stressed about getting so many things done and you're frantic, you actually end up working more and doing less. When you slow down and you bring God into your day to day, even if it's just folding laundry or cooking, or, you know, having a call with a client, or tending your garden, or playing with your kids, whatever it is that you're doing, when you bring God into that, you can be relaxed and be spending time with him while you're getting done all the things you need to do, which is a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, it has been such a pleasure talking with you, Brie. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Do you have any other pieces of advice or phrases or a piece of scripture that you want to share?
Gosh, I wasn't prepared for that.
If you want, what's your favorite scripture? I can pull it up right now.
I don't have a favorite scripture. I feel like at different times in my life, different scriptures speak to me differently. I guess one right now, like for my husband and I, we're just going through a lot with stress and anxiety and the enemy trying to attack and in our thoughts and our minds. So this is like my husband's favorite scripture. And like during this season of life, it's really been helping both of us, is be still and know that I am God. I think for him, the be still part is really important. And throughout right now, just knowing that, especially with the stress of our life, just getting married, trying to figure out like newlywed stuff and living together and my business, it's just like, God doesn't call us for a hectic life. He calls us for to be stress-free. And just those words, like be still, I have to remember that, because I'm a very go person, and just reminding myself of those verses. Like I need to be still in him and put my trust on him, because when I put my trust on him, like my life is not as chaotic as it is without him.
Yeah. And that always, anytime I hear about, like, you know, being still and peace in God, it reminds me of the let the Lord bless you and keep you, let the Lord shine his countenance upon you and give you peace. It's like when you're still in him, that peace and that light is able to shine through you. And Brie, you have that light, even when you do. And you know, you might be going through a stressful period and whatnot, but just know that what you're doing it shows, and you're a huge inspiration to me. So, and I love you. I love you as a friend and a daughter in Christ. So.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I do have one more thing.
Yeah.
I remember like on, you don't have to add this part on the notes, you're talking about social media and stuff. So I kind of want to add like being a woman into that is, because I don't know, I just felt this. So whenever you're listening to people on podcasts and see people on social media, it's like our life is not all together. And I think that social media and the internet, it kind of glamorizes life. And I actually had a girl reach out to me today about like this morning about some struggles she's going through. And it's just, I just want to remind people that nobody is better than anybody and everybody struggles with things. And I know on social media, no one posts all their struggles on there. And I think it's just important to remember that we're all going through something. And just because someone might have more followers than you do, doesn't mean that their life is easier. It doesn't mean that like you might look up to somebody and you might glamorize somebody's life, but glamorize your own life. Make yourself feel like, okay, I don't even know how I'm supposed to word this. I just had this thought and I was like, God, how do I say this?
No, I think that's really important. Me and Sam just talked about this a week ago. You would never, until like the past 15 years, and we didn't even have Instagram stories 15 years ago. I think that's when Facebook was created. But before then, you would have never got these glimpses into people's lives. You had your community that was around you. And I think it's great to have a social media community because I'm into some weird stuff. I'm into very holistic health and I'm into homesteading. And that's not really a common thing with necessarily the people around me. I've made that community, but it's not really common. So it's great to be able to meet people like that. We have to realize that people only take photos, post on their stories, the interesting things that are happening. And to be honest, I'm in this point in my life where like my life's not that interesting. I mean, some people probably find it's very interesting that I have a garden and I scratch cook, but like if I look at, and Brie, I'm just going to use you as an example. If I looked at what you did over the weekend, and I know you just got married and you've traveled recently and you wear cute clothes and I'm in the space of trying to save money and XYZ. If I looked at that and, you know, compared that to where I'm at, that can be very self-limiting, you know, like, well, why isn't God giving me this? Why am I stuck where I'm at? We're realizing that where you're at right now is for a reason and for a purpose. And I don't know. That's all I got on that.
Yeah, no, I feel that because I feel like we all have those people we look at on social media. Like I have a couple girls that I follow on social media that they're moving all over the country and they're traveling every week and they're every single day they have a video of what they're doing that day and they're always doing something. And I'm like, I'm at home in my pajamas working from my couch and watching Riverdale. Like, like I don't get it. And I struggle to do that as well. Like I'm looking at all these girls. I'm like, how do you do this? Like how do you get all these free clothes and stuff? And how do you afford all these things? And how does your life look like this? And my life is like this. And I think it's just so hard because like social media is just a mask over our lives. It's just a highlight reel. Yeah. And I just want to say that social media is not our lives, and that if anyone like is identifying and just watching people on social media, I take a break from social media. That's what I had to do because I was comparing myself so much to what other people were doing, and it got so unhealthy. Like I was getting so unhealthy in that because God had a purpose for me in my life. Like my purpose is not somebody else's purpose that I'm glamorizing on social media. Yeah. And we all have our own walk with God. Amen. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, very important to end on. So Brie Matthews.
Yeah.
Exciting. Where can the people find you if they would like to give you a follow and support you?
Oh, yeah. On TikTok and Instagram, I'm Brie_Matthews, BRIE_Matthews, Brie like the cheese.
Yes.
Okay. So, and on Facebook, I mean, if you want to, it's just Brie Matthews too.
Sure, right? Never know. Well, thank you so much for being here, Brie. Brie does have a really awesome Amazon storefront. She posts really great videos on TikTok of realistic things that she buys. I loved your swimsuit haul and
Oh, thank you.
just a lot of things that you post. And Brie's also very vulnerable, which I appreciate because similar to what we talked about, I mean, not everything in life is glamorous, and so it's nice to follow people that show like their real lives, and I think Brie does a good job of doing that. So thank you so much for being here, and yeah, that's all I got.
Thank